You're listening to the AFTERBUZZ TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Dean Johnson.
The AFTERBUZZ Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is AFTERBUZZ TV's AFTERBUZZ at the Movies. We'll break down tonight's episode and get you all the latest news and gossip. And now, another post-game wrap-up show for your favorite TV show. It's AFTERBUZZ TV's AFTERBUZZ at the Movies.
Hey guys, Bing is for doing, and what are we doing? We're doing AFTERBUZZ at the Movies, talking about the new film, Beautiful Creatures. My name is John Campea. I'm the editor-in-chief over at AMC Movie News for AMC Theaters, and I'll let everybody introduce themselves, starting with Jessica to my right. Jessica?
Hey guys, I'm Jessica King. Find me on Twitter at @IamJessicaKing.
Hi.
Hey. Oh, sorry. No.
Hi, everyone. I'm Marisa Serafini.
Hey, everybody. I'm Dan Devey, the owner and founder of TheCinemaSource.com. Follow us on Twitter at TheCinemaSource.
And we are here today to talk about the new film, Beautiful Creatures. But before we go any further, I want to let you know that we're going to talk about this film, assuming that you've seen it. Now, we're not going to go like into detail, plot point by plot point spoilers, but you may hear some spoilers here and there. We'll try to keep them to a minimum, but just want to let you know, you don't have to have seen the movie to enjoy our discussion about it, but we're going to talk about it as if you have seen it. So, Jessica, let's start with you, and we'll go around the circle here. Let's start with your general impressions of Beautiful Creatures.
General impressions. I went into this movie with pretty low expectations. You know, the reason why I decided to see this movie amongst the others that came out this weekend was because it's something that I normally wouldn't jump to see. It kind of struck me as, you know, another version of Twilight, or, you know, one of those fantasy sequel films or whatnot. But I will say I was pleasantly surprised. I wasn't, you know, overly excited, like I have to see it again. I probably won't buy it when it comes out or go see the sequel, you know, if it does. But it caught my attention, and that's, you know, that's all I could ask for.
Dan?
I also went in with very low expectations because of the whole Twilight thing, but I was pleasantly surprised. I really enjoyed it. I thought that when you compare it to Twilight, it's light years better than the Twilight films. I mean, you have a story here that is actually empowering to young women, sets good examples, creates some good role models for women as opposed to Twilight. You have an amazing cast here. I mean, you've got Viola Davis, Jeremy Irons, Emma Thompson, who was so good. And the young cast, I really felt like this is not Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart, who are doing a movie that's going to be a franchise because they know they're going to make a lot of money, and that's it. These two kids, I mean, I really think they're in it for the right reasons. I think that they took the role because they found the story compelling and they enjoy the acting challenge. I don't think they're interested in being the next Us Weekly cover couple or anything like that. So I don't think we're going to see that kind of nonsense from them as the franchise continues, which I really respect. And more than that, I thought it was a really fun movie. I thought it was something different than the Twilight films. I was excited. I didn't really know what was going to happen next. So I thoroughly enjoyed it.
I liked it. I kind of had high expectations for this movie because I'm into fantasy. This is my kind of genre that I tend to go to the movie theaters to watch. Overall, it was very good. It wasn't my favorite. There were some points of the movie I liked, some points I didn't. I liked the fact that they went with two kind of unknown for the leads, and I thought that was very refreshing to watch, especially, you know, coming off of Twilight, and those movies are such a success, and those actors blew up. And I think we'll see more of these two leads of this movie and more bigger roles for them. But overall, the movie, it was pretty good. It kind of fell a little flat for me at the end.
I didn't have terribly low expectations because Jeremy Irons is there. And if Jeremy Irons was there, it saves my expectations a little bit. But this movie is far worse than I ever could have possibly imagined. This is one of the worst pieces of garbage movies I have seen in years. Horrible story, horrible, terrible, prejudicial stereotypes, terrible, awful acting that we will never see these actors in anything ever again. This was as bad as you could possibly make a movie.
Oh my
just
God.
unleashed.
Other than Jeremy Irons and oh God, no, other than Jeremy Irons, and even he is nowhere near Jeremy Irons. There is nothing redeemable about this movie. I'll let you wonder about what I'm going to give it out of 5 later at the end of the show. But Dan, let's start with you. Let's focus on the elements of the film that worked for you. What were the things that worked for you in Beautiful Creatures?
Well, first of all, as far as their like future careers, Alden, who plays the lead guy, is working with Woody Allen next. So I think he's going to be just fine. I don't think this is going to have any.
Terrible.
And before Woody
terrible.
Allen, he worked with 2 other major directors whose names I'm forgetting right now. But he's going to be just fine. Everyone in this film is definitely going to continue to work. But the things specifically that I liked about it, one, I liked the role reversal where this time the girl had the power and the guy didn't have the power. I find that a lot more interesting to watch. I think the dynamic is interesting. I thought that it doesn't end the way we're expecting. Again, spoilers, but I mean...
Don't give anything too big away.
Okay. Well, it doesn't end the way that we would
Right.
really expect, or what you would expect from a Twilight film. Is it perfect? No, of course it's not perfect. And is it young adult fantasy? Yes. And
Are you saying that, maybe I missed the end, are you saying that Beautiful Creatures doesn't end with love prevailing all?
Well, you know, it might. You have to watch the sequel to see what happens next. But it doesn't end on that big, high, upbeat note that you would expect from a film like this. And also, I can't believe I forgot to mention her in the beginning. Emmy Rossum. How could you not? Her introductory scene alone, when she gets out of the car wearing that dress, what? Oh my God, she's one of the most beautiful women in Hollywood. And she chewed the scenery with this character. She loved being evil. I thought that was so fun to watch. I can't believe you didn't like it.
I'll get to it when it's my turn. What did you think? What are the elements that really stood out to you as working really well for you?
I liked the visual effects. I thought that was so well done.
You know what? Actually, now that you mention it, I didn't think about that. I think that's a really good observation. Yeah. They were so good, I didn't notice them. That's a really good point.
I thought that part stood really strong of the movie. The acting fell short. I think the 2 leads, Alden and Alice.
Yeah.
Sometimes I thought Alden came on a little too strong, like he was pretending like, yes, I'm going to protect you with my whole life. You know,
I met you yesterday.
It felt forced that he was really in love with this girl. I'm like, I didn't believe that. But visual effects, that in the dark, you can see the lady at the beginning of that started the curse.
Oh, right. The grandmother.
Yeah, Serafini. Which I thought the name was interesting because my last name is Serafini. I was like, so close to evil. That's awesome. So I thought the visual effects for her were amazing. She looked
they did look great.
evil. So that was the one thing I really loved of the movie.
What about you, Jessica?
I have to be honest, there wasn't really anything that stood out to me in the movie. It was just a movie. I didn't leave it thinking like, oh my gosh. Like I said, it kept my attention, which was all I could ask for going in with such low expectations. I will say one thing that I guess helped to keep my attention were the minute pieces of comedy bits that were in there, which I thought helped, especially, you know, when you're comparing it to something like Twilight, which is very somber the whole time through. And so it was kind of refreshing to be able to laugh every so often, although it got repetitive a little bit with them. Like every other thing was, so you're a bitch, so that's a bitch. So I was like, okay, that's enough. But yeah, there wasn't anything that hugely stood out to me. I agree with you, Marissa, that the acting kind of seemed a little over the top, you know, for these 16, 17-year-olds who are just, I mean, I don't know, maybe kids are different these days, but I was not that passionate at that age. So yeah.
The things that stood out to me that were really good, you know what, and I'm glad you brought up the visual effects, because you know what, those actually were well done. They weren't too over the top. I did like that dining room scene where, you know, with the spinning and everything.
table.
It's a very interesting, it was an interesting choice for a visual effect there. I thought that was really good. I will admit, too, there are some places in the movie where the dialogue is actually quite sharp. Some of the dialogue in it is quite humorous, and the timing is done really well. To the best of my knowledge, the credits were spelt correctly. The camera seemed to be in focus most of the time. I'm stretching now. I really can't see much. But Dan, you brought up an interesting point, and we'll get into some of the detail stuff now. You mentioned, you know, Alice and Alden, I believe is how you pronounce his name, that, you know, you really respect them because they're not going the route of the magazine covers and glamour. I'm going to guarantee you they had nothing to do with that decision-making process and whether or not they're going to be plastered on the covers of magazines. But the fact of the matter is, neither of these two actors are nearly as marketable as Robert Pattinson and
Kristen Stewart.
Broody Face.
Because these guys are a little talented?
They're first of all, Robert Pattinson is a better talent than I think we
I agree with that. I agree with that.
But also,
outside of Twilight.
Right. Remember, going into Twilight, he was already established with a huge fan base because of his Harry Potter work.
Right.
So you had that whole thing going on. So they were, I guarantee you, if the studio thought they could increase the portfolio of this film, if they thought people would care that these two kids were on the covers of magazines, they would put them on the covers of magazines. They're not as good looking as the Twilight couple.
But I have to disagree because I don't think these two actors are the type of actors you can go to and say, okay, we need a phony relationship and we need it now because we're going to need this to push this movie. I don't think they're going to say yes to that.
Now, I agree with you, but I guarantee you they would also say this because they have no gravitas in Hollywood right now to say no to any studio, whatever studio tells them to do.
No, but John, there are some actors in Hollywood who actually like acting.
Dude, you're not talking about 20-year veterans who have established a reputation.
No, of course not. But they have already worked with really amazing people, and there are. I mean,
sweet naive Dan.
When you
sweet naive Dan.
The only way you become a wise, aged actor in Hollywood who has the respect and gravitas of people is by not selling out when you're young. So to say that these guys are definitely destined to be Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart just because they're young now is incredibly naive.
I'm not saying they're
there
destined
are
to come
some
down.
young people who don't have to sell
you're misunderstanding me. The point is, selling out wouldn't do them any good. That's my point.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, you just put yourself in this horrible piece of trash movie. You've already sold out. So these two are just. And I'm sorry, Alden was awful in this film. From the first, I couldn't stand. I wanted to plug my ears. 5 seconds into him talking.
Why?
He was so bad. And, you know, talking about the story of this, and then I want to go around and allow you guys the opportunity to find something that you didn't like about the film. But I'll start us off with this, and I'll try to keep the laundry list as short as I can. But this whole thing, first of all, this is Twilight. This is Twilight 2.0. This is, these two young kids unrealistically, unexplainably, completely, unconditionally fall in love immediately. One of them is a supernatural creature who puts the other one in danger because of their supernatural relationship with this normal mortal person. I'm sorry. What was I just talking about Twilight, or was I talking about Beautiful Creatures?
Or Warm Bodies. It's the Romeo and Juliet story. This is what has to happen to tell this story.
But it puts them in mortal. So I didn't buy any of that. The fact that they boom, I'm in love with you, and I'm 15, and I actually know everything about love and life, and I'll die for you. I'm sorry. I wanted to vomit.
But
let me move on. Let me move on from this. One of the things that I really, and this bugs me about films in total, like I have this real pet peeve about movies that fall back, and to me this is one of the most epitomizes lazy filmmaking, when you fall back on egregious stereotypes. When you do that, to me, that screams to me that you just don't know how to tell a story. And I don't care if those stereotypes are about certain nationalities. I don't care if it's about gender roles. I don't care if it's about sexual orientation. And I don't care if it's about religion. And this one, it happened to be religion. And I'm sorry, and you know, I heard it once said, Howard Stern said, and quite accurately once said that the religious right, our society's changed so much that it's become the one acceptable stereotype. We are allowed to be biased and negative against religion. And I'm sitting there watching this film, and I'm watching them play out this horrible, base, drag through the mud, wrong stereotype of what religious people are. And I used to travel in some kind of religious circles, and I can say, you know what? I've never known anybody like that.
Have you seen Jesus Camp?
Yes, I have. Yes, I have.
Jesus, I mean, they speak in tongues. They were bowing to a cardboard cutout.
Stop for a second. You're talking about 1% of that population.
Right.
You're talking about 1%. And when we make movies of the worst 1% of any people group and say this is the representation of the people group, very rightfully, we point at those filmmakers and we go, that is not acceptable. That's lazy filmmaking. That's portraying negative stereotypes based on 1 or 2% of that particular group of people. And we don't accept it, and we shouldn't accept it. And when I look at a film like this, that is just, why does it every time? These slack-jaw local Bible thumpers, they're actually the villains of the film. And it's like, to me, you know what? you lost me because you just told me you don't know how to tell a story. You don't know how to write antagonists, and you're gotten really lazy by depending on stereotypes. And I don't care who the stereotype is against. It really kind of bothers me. But that being said, overall, the narrative is terrible. The acting is bad. The sudden "I love you, I don't love you." You mentioned, Rosamund is so gorgeous. She's so beautiful. But I think she took her paycheck, walked on set one day, and walked off. I didn't sense any effort from her whatsoever in that role. And that was part of my excitement, was that she's going to show up and she's going to do her thing because she is so beautiful and so talented that when she doesn't exhibit her talent, it just stands out all the more. But because there was no talent in this movie, she blended right in. But anyway, so that's me. So Dan, let me throw it over to you. What are some of the elements of this film that you thought could have been improved upon, that you thought could have been better?
Okay. Well, wait. I have to say something about all of that stuff that you just said.
Let's not get into a big thing of point counterpoint, because we'll be here for hours. So just make one point quickly,
okay,
then we'll get to your negative things.
Everything you just said, you were wrong. Okay. Next, the things that I felt could have been better about the film. God, I actually, normally I don't buy that whole love at first sight thing. Now I'm committing to you for the rest of my life, like the Twilight did and like other films did. The reason why I bought into it this time is because the lead character is set up as so isolated in this small town, so on a different wavelength than everything he's ever seen in his life, and so desperate for something different, something new, something exciting, something that will get him out of where he is. When this girl shows up in town, she has everything he's ever wanted to find. So I believe that he fell for her immediately because she was the epitome of what he'd been longing for his entire life. On her side, not so much, but on his side, I totally bought it. I thought she did a good job. I wasn't sold on her as the lead. I thought her performance was okay, but I thought his was much better than hers. So I'm not sure if I would have cast her in this role. I would have personally liked to have seen more with the other family members. You mentioned the dining room scene, which is so great.
Yeah, one of the highlights for me of the movie, I think.
Yeah, and who was it? It played her cousin, the guy he played the Flash on Smallville.
Yeah, I instantly recognized. I don't know his name though, but
yeah, I can't remember his name right now. He was also in Nightmare on Elm Street
and Veronica Mars.
Veronica Mars. I really enjoy him. I think he's great. So I would have liked to have seen more with him and more Emmy. I loved the quick flashback they did to before she was taken by the dark, before she was claimed. I thought that was a great counterbalance to seeing her as the evil version. But I think even when she was playing the evil version, you could see the good was still buried under there somehow, because I love her. I think she's incredibly talented, and I thought she did great with this role. Yeah. So
okay. What about you? Some of the things you thought they could have done better?
Yes, the acting from the leads weren't the greatest because I think they were so overshadowed by the rest of the ensemble because they are strong actors. We've seen them in other things before. And I thought the other characters, like the aunt and Emmy were awesome and stuff, those characters were more interesting to me to watch. I could have watched the movie without the two leads because the two leads, it has, yes, that typical romantic storyline that we've already seen and heard, and I wanted to watch the rest of the other characters. Like Viola Davis.
Yeah.
She was great. Good. Her character was interesting, had layers, had more backstory to all of the characters, and she knew his mother and whatnot. So just that, there were more storylines that they could have played on with the other characters in the movie. I think the storyline, we see like every day she has the tattoo on her hand counting down to the day she's getting claimed. And the day that she finally got claimed, they kind of fell flat because they didn't really show her.
They didn't show it since like 13.
They didn't show it.
It was actually kind of anticlimactic, wasn't it? Like
very anticlimactic. Like, did she choose evil, or was it the nature of her that she became evil? They didn't really show that, and that's what we've been waiting for. The number started off like, what, 124 days or something?
Yeah, something like that.
But we didn't see that ending.
I did like that little plot device of the tattoo changing every day. I did. That was a clever little visual kind of cue for us to look at it as we're engaging with it.
I think that goes back to what you were saying earlier, though, the difference between the curse and the claiming, because it's the claiming at the beginning that we're watching the countdown, and then it becomes about the curse, which is a different thing. So I think that's why the focus was less on on the claiming and more on the curse. I think.
So Jessica, let me ask you this: the Twilight, it's unfair sometimes to compare franchises, but the Twilight comparison is unavoidable, and that's why we see it so much right now as Beautiful Creatures coming out. Do you think the Twilight comparisons hurt Beautiful Creatures, or do you think it helps Beautiful Creatures?
I think it hurts. I think it especially hurts Emma because she's going to continue to be compared to Kristen Stewart now, and her character had a lot of those similarities, like the somber, the dark, the staring.
Oh, you mean Alice? Alice or Emma?
Alice.
Oh, Alice. Sorry, the lead,
Alice.
sorry. Just like staring off into space, and you know, the blank look in her eyes. Like I couldn't help but think about that throughout the whole movie. Like I kept thinking Bella, 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 because they had, even though Bella's immortal, I guess, well, not anymore, I don't know. They have like a lot of the same similarities. I agree with you on the stereotype thing, and I fall into this trap a lot, and it might be one of the reasons why I don't, I'm not usually drawn to a lot of the fantasy movies, because I'm constantly thinking of what's realistic and what's not. So in my head, I'm like, that's so fake. That's not realistic. Like, I didn't like the fact that Alden, when he heard that Macon, or got a inkling that he knew his mother, that he didn't question that, you know, like his mom died and he just met this guy that knows his mom, and it's just like, oh, you know my mother? Oh, cool. And
but wait, I thought you hadn't left the house in 30 years.
Yeah, like wait, like what, that, I thought that would have been an interesting storyline. You know, we hear a little more that maybe he was in love with her or whatnot, but there was nothing else on that, and I thought that could have taken the movie to a totally different place, that could have put something else there that was missing. A lot of it, like you guys were saying, a lot of it fell flat for me. What
about you, Dan? The comparisons, fair or unfair? Do you think those comparisons are helping or hurting Beautiful Creatures?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question that I don't have a definite answer for, because I could argue both sides of it. The fact that Twilight was such a enormous financial success, you know that the audience is out there, and by the comparison, a lot of that audience is going to go just because they think it will fill the void of no more Twilight films. But by the same token, the Twilight films sucked. So from a critic standpoint, oh God, they were atrocious. From a critic standpoint, or from, you know, a non-fan standpoint, you're going to make the association and think, oh, this is the same old, so there's no reason for me to see this. So, but then again, with this cast, I mean, how do you look at a roster of actors like this and think, you can't think it's just another Twilight. You just can't. There's no way in the, Viola Davis doesn't need the work. Emmy Rossum doesn't need the work. Jeremy Irons certainly doesn't need the work. They did this for a reason, and I don't think it was a financial one. I mean, in talking to Viola Davis, I mean, she really loved this story. And when you talk to the women who created it originally, this wasn't one woman alone in a room saying, I wish my life had been happier, the way Stephenie Meyer was. This was two moms who weren't writers. One, I think, was a teacher, and I forget what the other, or maybe they were both teachers. But they got together and they came up with this story and brought it to their kids and then people in the school and said, well, what would you like to see? How do you think this would play out? What's your reaction to this? Which is why the overall message of the film is a positive one, because they were creating a story for their kids. They weren't doing it to work out their own personal adolescent demons, I think, the way that Stephenie Meyer was. So I think the story comes from a better place. It comes from a more altruistic place. They didn't expect to be overnight successes with, you know, movies rolling out and all these books. Yes, they're grabbing onto it and they're riding that train now, but it's not why they created it initially. So I have a lot of respect for where this film came from and the people who decided to be a part of it.
All right, well, we got to wrap this thing up here. So let's start over here. Your quick wrap up of the film and your rating out of 5.
Visually, it was great. Acting, storyline, fell flat. Overall, 3 out of 5.
3 out of 5, so 60%. All right, Dan?
I really enjoyed it. Was really surprised that I enjoyed it. Again, have a lot of respect for where it came from and everyone involved in it. So I'm going to go, I mean, it still had its problems. Don't get me wrong. I'm not running back to the theater to see this again. But it held my attention and I got into the story. And I'm actually anxious to see what the next one will be. So I'm going to say a 3.5.
Jessica?
I will give it a 2 because I was surprised at the ending. And I always like surprising endings when I can't predict what's going to happen. But I probably will not see the sequel. And like I said, I will not be running to buy the DVD.
Right, I think there was some snappy dialogue, a couple of interesting visual cues, nice visual effects, but overall, this very impressive cast should have delivered a much better set of performances than they did. I thought it was terrible, terrible story, terrible stereotypes, terrible performances mailed in by some top-notch actors who I really love and respect. I'm going to give the film a 0.5. I thought it was that bad.
0.5? At least I got the 0.5.
0.5 because of the snappy dialogue. So Jessica, why don't you take us out of here?
All right, guys, check us out on YouTube. Check us out on iTunes. Rate us. Let us know what you think. And if you've seen the movie, definitely leave comments and let us know if you agree with us, if you disagree with us. We love to hear it all. Until next time, find me on Twitter at I am Jessica King.
You can find me on Twitter at John Campea.
I'm on Twitter at Serafini TV.
You can visit me at thecinemassource.com or follow us at thecinemassource.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.